Happy wife, happy life. In theory, if a woman can make herself happy and she's with a good man, yes, if your wife is happy, things will be good. But the other part of that equation, that's one of the biggest lies ever sold to men, is that there's nothing you can do to make your wife happy. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Let's get into today's topic. Do you need to retire from making your wife happy? And this show is for the good men listening and understanding this concept. It's also for the women listening who know they're stuck in looking to their husbands for their happiness and don't grasp and understand what it is within them that they need to be doing to make themselves happy. And that's very much been my journey in my marriage that I'll talk about here and there in the show today. I want to talk about this because it's really, really difficult. So in the conversations I've had with good men, it's very apparent and understandable. It's very difficult for a good man to understand the concept that he cannot make his wife happy. Happy wife, happy life. In theory, if a woman can make herself happy and she's with a good man, yes, if your wife is happy, things will be good. But the other part of that equation, that's one of the biggest lies ever sold to men, is that there's nothing you can do to make your wife happy. Nothing. And so good men need to retire from making their wives happy. And I want to first talk a little bit of why that is. Then I'm going to talk about why are we so unhappy as women. And then I'm going to talk about 10 things a good man should never agree to with his wife under the guise that it will somehow make her happy. So that's where we're going today. It's so difficult for a good man to understand that he cannot make his wife happy because it's his whole focus in makeup is that he wants to make his wife happy. And that's very much a hallmark of a good man is it's in his nature to want to please his wife, to want to make her feel cared for, to give her the things that she wants and to provide. Because that's his whole focus. He wants his wife to be happy. That's all a good man wants for his wife. I've said that so many times that if you ask a good man what he most wants for his wife, it's for her to be happy, and not from a victim place of, oh, she was just happy, from a very genuine, heartfelt place of, all I want for her is to be happy. That's what a good man wants. And the reason for that, and what I teach, is that a good man is wired fundamentally to be happy. And I'm not talking about the feeling or emotion of happy. I'm talking about feeling content, fulfilled, happy with what he has, understanding the reality and challenges of life and being able to problem solve through that and have a healthy outlook on the reality of life. That's a good man's fundamental nature. It doesn't mean he never has problems or issues or gets challenged with things like depression or anxiety. That's a whole other topic. but his fundamental nature is happy, well-adjusted, content, a healthy grasp and outlook on life. And we can know that because all he wants for his wife is to be happy. And he does everything he can to make her happy. But the more you try and your wife is unhappy in herself, the more it backfires on a good man to keep trying to make her happy. It ultimately drives her unhappiness because it exposes there's nothing that makes her happy, and the list keeps growing. And it makes her feel bad about herself, and then she sees her husband as weak, that he keeps trying and doing the things to make her happy. And that's the cycle that they will live in. There's nothing you can do to make her happy, so you have to retire from making her happy. She's not thinking about all the things she could do to make you happy, because we're selfish and self-centered in our unhappiness, and all we can think about is ourselves and what we need. Good men are the ones sitting around of, maybe if I did this, or maybe I should do this thing she asked, or stop doing this thing she asked, and maybe she'll finally be nice and in a good mood, and it'll solve some problem. And so you're led to believe that there's something you can do when you can't. And so you have to retire. You have to retire from making your wife happy. It doesn't mean you don't do the things that you enjoy doing as a good man, but you do them for yourself because it makes you feel good about who you are, and don't live in the illusion that somehow it will make your wife happy. So I want to talk a little bit more about why this is, why there's nothing you can do to make your wife happy. So first, I want to talk a little bit about camp victim. That is, women, and blaming our husbands for our unhappiness and the issues and problems in the relationship. We live in camp victim. Our whole focus is outward to all the things that we can identify and all the people we can identify outside of us that are the cause of our unhappiness. Our husband is the main target of what we blame our unhappiness on in camp victim. Then it might be our mothers or our fathers or our upbringing or our work or our boss or our coworkers, or maybe we own a business and we're blaming owning a business on our unhappiness. We can blame friends, we can blame society, we can blame culture. And for the good men listening, you can probably run through that list and have your own list of, over the years, who has your wife been unhappy with, or what has your wife been unhappy with that she points to for the cause and reason of her problems and her issues with herself and her life. And you could probably make that list. And for the women listening, you, if you're honest and willing to look at yourself, can make that list of what are the things you thought or have been the cause of your unhappiness. The problem with camp victim of putting our unhappiness outside of us and pointing the finger out and looking to all the circumstances and people and things of our life that have been the cause of our issues, our problems, our unhappiness, is that there's no looking inward. As a victim, fundamentally, as a victim, our whole focus is external to the people, things, and circumstances in our lives. In camp victim, there's no capacity because we're constantly looking for the things and people we think have done something to us that are causing the problems in our unhappiness. And that's our sole focus, that there's no focus inward to ourselves to have accountability and responsibility of what is it in my choices and decisions, what is it about me that's causing this. There's no understanding to look at that within us in camp victim. It is solely external. So for the men listening, as long as your wife is in camp victim, blaming you and others for the cause of her unhappiness, she's incapable of being happy. As long as your wife is in camp victim, blaming you and others for the cause of her unhappiness, she is incapable of being happy. Because there's no accountability in her experience and no responsibility in her experience of being unhappy. And she will continue to make a laundry list of the things that you need to do to solve that for her. And as a good man, because that's in your nature to want to do those things, you will continue to do them and continue to feel drained and defeated and crushed, because no matter what you do, it's almost like she just gets unhappy, or she's happy for a little bit, and then she's right back to the complaining and the list of things that are contributing to her unhappiness. What this is really saying in a simple way is that happy people are happy, and unhappy people will always be unhappy. Happy people are happy, and unhappy people will always be unhappy. If your wife was happy, she wouldn't need you to do anything for her to make her happy. She would actually appreciate when you do kind and thoughtful things for her. She would actually appreciate it and recognize it and be touched by it. Because she's unhappy, she tells you the ways it wasn't enough, you didn't do it the right way, or she's completely oblivious to the things you're doing out of thoughtfulness and care for her to be happy, and you're completely dismissed, unacknowledged, unrecognized, and feel completely unappreciated. That's because she's unhappy, and she will always be unhappy unless she does something herself to take responsibility and accountability that she's unhappy. So I'm going to say it one more time. Happy people are happy, and unhappy people will always be unhappy. So you need to know, and women, you need to know this too. And in this, I'm speaking to the men, but there's nothing in her life that is causing her to be unhappy. It's that she is unhappy, which means there's nothing missing in her life or nothing that could be added to her life that would make her happy. Which, again, and you'll hear me say this several times today, is why you need to retire from making her happy. As I often say, you're throwing your actions and feelings into an empty bucket with holes, and it just leaks right out. So again, you can do the things that make you feel good about yourself because it's just who you are as a good man, but you have to retire from the belief that it can somehow make her happy, because it won't. So other than living in Camp Victim, which is a very miserable place to be and no capacity for us to be happy in Camp Victim, I want to look at another angle of why as women we are so unhappy. For men to be able to understand more because of your fundamental nature to be happy and be optimistic and focus on the good things and be content. That's not how we're wired as women. So this will help men understand, and also help the open-minded women listening, help you understand why we're so unhappy as women. I've talked about some of this before, but I want to come from another angle, again, just as another way to help us understand our unhappiness and for men to be able to understand it as well. Ultimately, we make ourselves unhappy. So let me explain that. Our unhappiness as women is within ourselves. It's not out in our life and what we feel is lacking or missing or what our husbands should be doing or not doing. Our unhappiness is within ourselves. And it's because we know what we're not doing that we know we need to be doing. We create our unhappiness as women because of the things we know we need to be doing that we are not doing. The degree to which we are unhappy is the size of the gap between what we do for ourselves to care for ourselves and what we know we're not doing that we should be doing. The gap between those two, what we're doing for ourselves, what we know we're not doing for ourselves, the degree of which we are unhappy is determined by the size of that gap. The bigger gap between what we're doing for ourselves and what we know we need to be doing for ourselves that we're not is the degree of which we are unhappy. I'm going to give some examples in a moment. The more we don't do the things we know we need to do, the more unhappy we are. Also, the more things we don't do for ourselves to be happy and content and fulfilled, as married women, the more we put that on our husbands of what they need to be doing for us to make us happy. There is zero accountability. Also, the further that gap, happiness and meaning more feeling content and fulfilled in life, happiness seems like a huge responsibility and almost an impossible burden to carry because of that gap between what we do for ourselves and what we know we need to be doing that we don't. So I want to give 5 examples of the things we know we need to do or stop doing as women that create that gap of how we create our unhappiness within ourselves. The first example of what we don't do for ourselves that we know we need to be doing. Number 1, we don't take care of our health. And that could look like not going to the gym and being physically active. It looks like not feeding our bodies the way that we need to care for our bodies. And that can be on 2 different spectrums. For some women, it's withholding food from themselves and starving themselves to be as thin as they can be. For other women, it's overeating and eating foods that aren't healthy for us. Be drinking too much. And a big one is eating out and ordering out and not cooking. So that's number 1 of what we do or don't do that creates our unhappiness that we know we need to be doing is we don't take care of our health. Number 2 of how we make ourselves unhappy is distracting ourselves from our life with social media and texting and constantly being on our phones. You know, you get home at the end of the day, you do what you need to do for your family and cooking, and then you've got some quiet time or free time and just on our phone scrolling through Instagram and social media, not to mention the effect that can have on us of thinking there's more things we don't have that we think we need to be happy, and comparing ourselves to others and comparing ourselves to fake images and pictures that aren't even real, thinking that's what our life should look like. But the biggest reason of why that's something we know we shouldn't be doing, but we do it anyway, is it's a huge distraction from ourselves and a huge distraction from our lives and our relationships and our responsibilities. And it doesn't make us feel good about ourselves. Number 3 of the things we do that we know we shouldn't be doing, or the things we know we should be doing that make us unhappy, being busy and stretching ourselves too thin. So overcommitting in our calendar, giving way too much to others, and constantly having something that we need to do, and just being sped up and busy and overcommitted in our calendars, where we ultimately end up being a martyr of poor me, look at all the things I have to do to take care of everyone else. When's someone going to take care of me? And that's another way we make ourselves unhappy. Number 4, we stop caring for ourselves. And in this, I mean things like not showering in the morning and getting ourselves ready for the day, not getting dressed in flattering clothes or getting dressed at all, and putting ourselves into our day. As I've worked with women over the years, it's always like, wow, the things we will let go of in ourselves that just make us feel really unimportant, that we don't matter, makes us feel lazy, sloppy, and that we know we're not showing up in the ways we need to for ourselves. And number 5 of how we make ourselves unhappy, and that gap between what we're doing for ourselves, what we know we need to be doing for ourselves or stop doing for ourselves. Number 5, having toxic friends that you know you need to let go of. We will hold on to negative girlfriends who always have drama or something going on in their lives, or they take advantage of us and pull from us. They're, energy vampires, or just toxic friendships. As women, we're pain avoiders. We don't want to face the conflict of ending a friendship or believe that we're friends, so we should be friends forever, when that's not really realistic and it's not healthy. So we hold on to toxic friends for the drama, and also to have somebody to focus on other than ourselves. Well, she needs me. If she doesn't have me as a friend, she's just going to totally fall apart. Those are the stories we will tell ourselves. And these are things we know we either need to do or stop doing that aren't healthy, yet we continue, which makes us feel really bad about ourselves and feeds that unhealthy relationship with ourselves. I want to give a bonus example I thought of too, of the things we know we need to be doing that we don't, which again makes us feel bad about ourselves as unhappy as women, is not being on a budget and overspending. Or on the flip side of that, being too frugal and depriving ourselves of the things that we actually need in life and caring for ourselves in that way. So that was a bonus one I thought of that I wanted to throw in. So this is why we're unhappy as women. Again, everything that I teach is, and both to men and to women, is centered around we have to live and can't take responsibility if we want to be the solution to the problems in our life, including our unhappiness. As long as we stay in camp victim thinking it's the people and things and circumstances and upbringing, our childhood and our parents and past relationships and men and all the laundry list we have of the people we blame for our problems and unhappiness, we will be stuck there forever. And we can't be happy. We can only be happy when we take responsibility and live in camp, take responsibility to see what is it in me that this is my experience, because that's what we have control over to change. So that's why I like explaining the gap of we create our unhappiness by the gap of what we do for ourselves and the things we're not doing that we know we need to do, but that we continue to push away and ignore and give up on. It makes us feel really bad about ourselves. We watch ourselves do it, then beat ourselves up that we're still doing it or not doing what we need to do for ourselves, which degrades our sense of self-esteem, degrades our confidence, degrades our value in ourselves, which are the building blocks and fundamental pieces that build a healthy relationship with ourselves so that we can be happy and content and fulfilled in our lives and not feel that there's something lacking or something missing, that if we had, everything would be solved. That is a false reality we live in that keeps us in camp victim, that keeps us stuck and keeps us feeling more and more and more miserable about ourselves, that then we don't want to take accountability for, that then we blame our husbands and put the unnecessary pressure and burden on them that they're supposed to fill this void in us, and they can't. But good men buy into and are manipulated to believe it's them, they're the problem, and that they need to fix it. So that's why men need to retire, and why the next place we're going to go are 10 things a good man should never agree to with his wife. in that framework and context that if you somehow did these things, it would make your wife happy. She might not outright say in these things, if we do this, I'll be happy. But her coercing you and nagging you and getting you to feel sorry for her and pulling you into her story of why she needs these things implies to a good man that these would make her happy. It's an implied impression that these will make her happy and leads good men to believe that if they did these things, it would solve some problem and his wife would finally be happy and content and they could have a nice, good relationship and marriage. Men, you have to retire from these things. The fact that you even think you need to do these things to make your wife happy tells you she is unhappy. Happy people don't need you to do things to make them happy. And with unhappy people, there's nothing you can do to make them happy. She will still be unhappy no matter what we've been talking about. And it's also important good men understand you didn't get the wrong wife. You got a woman, and to a degree, we have this unhappiness inside of us that we think you're supposed to somehow solve, and then you buy into that. As women, we're just wired differently than men. We're wired to be unhappy. And the good news is that we can change it if we want to, and we're willing to take accountability. So this list of 10 things a good man should never agree to with his wife is important to know. This is in the context of a good man being coerced or being led to believe if he did these things, it would solve some problem and his wife would be happy. Of course, if these are things you and your wife decide you want together, that's a totally different story. This is just in the context that you believe if you did these things, even if you don't want to do them, again, it would solve some problem and she would be happy. So let's get into the 10 things a good man should never agree to with his wife, thinking it will make her happy. Also, for the good men listening, you put in the comments, what are the things you've done? Thinking that your wife has implied would solve some problem and it would lead her to be happy. So fill in the gap of what I miss in this list that you've done or your wife is trying to get you to do. Number 1, move to another city. I have talked to so many men who have been either in like a constant move. They move their wife and family to someplace. His wife doesn't like it and thinks she wants to be here now. So they move again and he's caught in that cycle. Or men that have moved and gone to a new place thinking that will make his wife happy. And it might be, things like she wants to be close to family, or she wants to get away from family, or she wants to get away from your family, or she's unhappy where you are at because it's too small and it's too small of a town and she wants to be in a big city. Or you're in a bigger city and she wants to be in a small town and she thinks that'll make her happy. Whatever reason it is, it won't make her happy. Number 2, she wants to get a dog and wants you to agree to get a dog. Surprisingly comes up a lot where the wife gets the kids on her team. We really want to get a dog and we want to get a puppy. And maybe you're not an animal lover and that you just don't want the responsibility, or if we get a dog or another dog, I'm going to be the one that ends up taking care of it because she's not going to take accountability for it and she's not going to walk it and do the work. So it's a red flag if she's trying to talk you into getting a dog for the family and to complete the family unit. And if we just had a dog or another dog or we got a puppy, that she would be happy. It is a red flag telling you she's unfulfilled and that she's not happy with what she has and that it's not enough and it won't make her happy. Number 3, agreeing to let her quit her job and stop working. Again, this is a totally different topic if that's a value you and your wife have for her to be a stay-at-home mom and care for the kids or to not work. It's a separate context. I'm talking about if she's trying to coerce you into quitting her job because she thinks she'll be happier not working. and said, can we please go down to one income? Can we make it work? And you might be thinking, I don't think that's going to be good for her, or it's not going to be good for our finances. And that's going to put a huge strain and stress on me and the relationship. And maybe you know your wife and know this is going to be a nightmare if she's home all the time. So agreeing to let her quit her job and stop working under the guise that she thinks that will solve some problem and make her be happy, it won't. Some of the most unhappy women I have worked with over the years are those who quit their jobs and quit working thinking that that would make them happy. The problem is there's no structure in their day, especially if they don't have kids at home or kids are in school and they've got a whole block of time through the day to do whatever or to do nothing. There's no structure. I won't get too much on this because this can lead us way off into a tangent. I have learned structure is key to feeling fulfilled and content in life and parenting ourselves within that structure. It helps add meaning and purpose and allows us to actually move forward so we don't go in circles. It's imperative. I'll do another video on that another time because it's a pretty big concept, and being happy and having a healthy relationship with ourselves is having structure in life. But the problem with being home, there's nothing to get up for. And as women, we become spoiled, entitled, and a mess. So that's number 3. Number 4 of what a good man should never agree to with his wife, thinking it will make her happy. Going grocery shopping for her and the family or with her. And she might say, it's too much on my plate. I need you to take over the grocery shopping, or I need you to go with me and we need to do it together. Oh, I can't. Every time I go to the grocery store, I'd say most times if I'm paying attention, when I go to the grocery store, I can see a couple together and the man is just looks beat down, shut down, being dragged along, and they fight over prices, or no, that don't, you picked up the wrong thing. That's not what we get here. Just let me pick it out. All the time. I see it all the time. Or the other end of going and a man at the grocery store at himself. And actually, David, my mentor, shared this story. He was grocery shopping and he saw a man just looking at an aisle. And he said, struggling to find what you're looking for. He said, oh, I can't remember which brand my wife told me to get. And if I don't get the right brand and I come home with the wrong brand, I'm just going to get torn a new one. And I see that all the time too, that you'll never get the right thing. You'll never get the right brand. And it'll be something that she just takes out on you. Another thing you do wrong that you can't do right. Number 5. There's a couple on here though that I shouldn't have to say, but in this day and age, these things are not uncommon. I wouldn't say they're totally common, but they're not uncommon. So number 5, that a good man should never agree to with his wife is to open the marriage. I really shouldn't have to explain this much more, but I was actually just on X, I think yesterday or Thursday, and saw a Reddit post from, bless this man, a man who, him and his wife decided to open the marriage. She really wanted it. And he was wondering, she's out with her boyfriend right now and she's communicating with me and it's everything we agreed to, but I am just feeling crushed and devastated because a good man cares enough about their wives that she can coerce him and manipulate him and gaslight him to believe that that is somehow a good idea. I think that one speaks for itself, but do not open the marriage. It will not make her happy and you will end up feeling totally crushed and destroyed and the marriage will not work out and you will ultimately end up in divorce. So that's number 5. Number 6 that you shouldn't agree to with your wife is a vasectomy. Again, if she's trying to coerce you into getting a vasectomy because she's telling you that you need to do it, you're the one that needs to fix this because I've gone through labor, I had a difficult birth, I had to have a C-section. It's now your responsibility to step up to the plate and do this. It will not make her happy. And you having to go through that pain and go through that thinking it will make her happy, and it won't. And again, the being coerced into that is the key point of that will solve some problem that will make her happy. Number 7, a good man should never agree to with his wife again, of her saying that this will somehow make her happy or imply that it will make her happy. Having another baby. I have worked with many people, women and men, through the years who thought having another baby was a good idea, that that's what they needed in the marriage. And a woman will think, maybe you guys have 2 boys and she really wants a girl, but you guys decided on 2 kids and now she's like begging you for a 3rd child. Or maybe you guys decided when you got married too that you weren't going to have children and you both didn't want children, and now she's changed her mind and said, I really want a baby. Or women sometimes want the baby. So when the kids get older, they want a baby again. And again, it's just another distraction from life. Number 8, that a good man should not agree to with his wife, thinking it will make her happy, is stopping drinking. And I'm not talking about a drinking problem. I'm talking about a wife nagging a good man because he likes to have a couple of drinks after work and he's responsible and reasonable in his drinking, that she will want you to cut back because she wants to cut back or stop drinking, or she thinks and projects onto you that you drink too much and you're irresponsible, or you married the party girl who liked to have a good time and all of a sudden she thinks drinking is immature, even just responsible, normal drinking, and now she wants you to stop. It will not make her happy. Number 9 of things good men should not agree to make their wives happy. Number 9, remodeling projects. I recently had a student come through my men's course and his wife had constant remodeling projects. And one project wouldn't even be finished yet, and she was already wanting to start another one with no regard to time, money, energy, the stress that puts on him, the stress that puts on the relationship and the family. Again, a lot of these are just another distraction from life so that they can stay focused on something else and not deal with themselves and not deal with life. And number 10 of what a good man should not agree to with his wife, thinking it will make her happy. Number 10, going to counseling. And she tells you you're the reason, your trauma and your history and your childhood are the reason that we have these issues and challenges in our marriage, and you need to go to counseling and figure yourself out and get these issues solved. Or we need to go to marriage counseling because I need you to work on these things and we need to work on these things as a couple. It will not make her happy. And it will make you feel weak and degraded and that there is something wrong with you. When if you're a good man, you're typically reasonably adjusted to life, a problem solver, and can work through things and don't hold on to the stories of your life as the reason for your problems. That's what we do as women, that then we project onto you and psychoanalyze you. It will not make her happy. So as I was making this list of 10, and like I said, please put in the comments what I missed that you've done thinking it would make your wife happy. When I was making this list, I realized I could easily make another 10 and another 10 and another 10. But it's most important to reinforce that good men have to retire from making their wife happy, because none of these things will do it. She will just add more to the list. And you have to understand why these things won't make her happy is because she's unhappy in herself. And it's her. She's making herself unhappy. So it's her problem to fix. And you trying to fix it by doing these things or other things she tells you that implies that that will solve the problem and she'll be happy will never, ever work. If you want to do these things, again, if you want to do them because it makes you feel good about who you are as a man and a husband, rather than thinking it will make her happy or solve some problem and things will be good. That's where good men get caught and where you get stuck in that then ultimately you feel emasculated, degraded, and diminished and unappreciated. So, getting into the solution. So women, we're the solution to our unhappiness. And we're the solution by what I talked about before, closing the gap. That's how we build a healthy relationship with ourselves and make ourselves happy, meaning feeling good about who we are, having a relationship with ourselves, liking who we are, being content. So we don't need our husbands to do all these things to try to make us happy, We can just be happy in ourselves. And we do that by closing the gap of the things that we're doing for ourselves, but all the things we know that we're not doing or that we are doing that don't make us feel good about ourselves. We have to close the gap of those things, which will make us feel really good about ourselves, because then we know we're doing our best in life, that we're following through and doing the things that make us feel good about who we are, that we're being a responsible adult and taking accountability for ourselves, taking accountability for our lives, which makes us feel really good about who we are. Then we no longer feel like there's something missing or lacking in our lives, that if we had, our problems would be solved and everything would be good. When you close that gap and you focus on doing the things that make you feel good about yourself because you're following through and you're doing your best in life for you, and then everybody gets the benefit, that fills that emptiness and void we have in ourselves, that we're constantly looking for someone else, especially our husbands, to fill, that they can't. When we close the gap, that void and emptiness goes away and we're content. And we get out of that place of lack and wanting, thinking that it will make us happy, because it won't. And when we close the gap and we're whole within ourselves, then we can choose the experiences and things we want in life, not from a place of that they'll make us happy or solve some problem, but to grow and learn and to experience life. It's a totally different outlook and experience that we can have. For men, it's what we've been talking about all day. Retire. You have to retire from making your wife happy. That's what's allowing her to beat you down and make you feel wrong and bad, and that you're the problem and you're somehow the source of her unhappiness. She is the one that's unhappy. She has to solve it. We all know no one and no thing can make us happy. That is something we have to do for ourselves. And we're talking about that deeper sense of contentment and fulfillment and feeling good about who we are. You can't do that for your wife. And the more you try, the more she can emasculate you, the more you're susceptible to feeling wrong and bad about yourself from the emasculation, and then manipulated and brainwashed into thinking that you are the problem. That's why you have to retire, because that's where you have to take responsibility of how you allow your wife to emasculate you and make you feel wrong and bad. That once you know these things of what I teach, then you can take that power back you've unknowingly given away and no longer fall for the brainwashing and manipulation that you're the problem in her unhappiness. That's up to you. Once you see and understand what's going on, then you can have that clarity and no longer give that power away. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only, that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.